West Pokot County.
Abdul Rahim Daud, MP for North Imenti in Meru County and a member of this committee.
Honorable Mishi Mboko, MP Likoni, also a member of this committee.
Nelson Rapkoech, MP Belgut. To your left, Honorable Babu.
Yeah, good evening. Caleb Wamisi, MP Saboti.
Didoraso, MP Saku.
Abdi Shurie, MP Balambala, Garissa County.
Emase Mary, MP Teso South. And Mr. Speaker, I want to declare my interest that the nominees from my county and worked closely with me during the campaigns, the bottom up Busia County, but that will not in any way affect my work. Leo Nikazi. Thank you.
Stephen Mule, MP Matungulu.
Kikaria David, Nakuru Town East.
Naisula Lesuda, MP Samburu West.
Will introduce themselves. Florence.
Yes, sitting in for the acting clerk is Florence Atenyo Abonyo, Director, Audit, Appropriations and other select committees. With me is Mr. Michael Karuru, who is the Deputy Director, Legal Services, and behind him is a team of officers in the committee secretariat.
Honorable Abab Namwamba, you have been nominated by the President as the Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Sports and the Arts. The purpose of your appearance here is for this Committee of Parliament to engage you and establish your suitability for the office to which you have been nominated. Our engagement is not adversarial. It ought to be cordial but firm, fair, factual, and legal. We discourage ourselves from you as the nominee directly engaging members. You do through the chair, and members have also been very good in their conduct. All questions are asked through the chair. Even if you ask a question that pricks your inner feelings, so to speak, avoid the temptation to lose your cool and engage us in a manner that enhances the confidence of Kenyans in this process. We will, as a committee, act fairly, and we expect you to answer all questions truthfully, concisely, precisely, so that we can save on time. We have one other colleague of yours waiting to appear before the close of the day. Before we start, we will ask you some procedural questions, and after that we'll give you about 10 minutes or less, if you can do less the better, to tell us the story of your life up to where you are sitting before this committee. I must also inform the committee that the Honorable Babu Namwamba is very well known to me. He's a professional colleague in the legal profession. He comes from the same region as I do. He's a friend, and we have served in cabinet together before. That does not in any way affect my ability to chair these proceedings. Honorable Namwamba, do you have the following documents? One, tax compliance certificate.
Mr. Chairman, I do.
Higher education loans board clearance certificate.
I do.
Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission clearance.
I do.
Certificate of good conduct.
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Have you ever been charged and been convicted of any criminal offense in a court of law?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Are you a dual citizen of Kenya and any other jurisdiction?
Mr. Chairman, I'm exclusively a citizen of Kenya.
You have your original identity card. You'll pass it on to the clerks to see.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And if you have the originals of all these documents, you'll share with the clerks to compare with what you already forwarded to us, then they'll give you back your originals. At a personal level, what is your net worth in terms of finances?
Mr. Chairman, may I, with your permission, just draw your attention to the fact that my bachelor's degree certificate from the University of Nairobi, I submitted a copy of the same, but I do have a confirmation letter from the university confirming my status as a graduate of that university.
What happened to the original?
It was misplaced, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead and answer the last question.
Mr. Chairman, my net worth is 425 million Kenya shillings.
How do you segregate that?
If you allow me, Mr. Chairman, I would quickly make reference to the questionnaire that I submitted to this honorable committee, which provides details of the spread of that net worth, which includes my residence here in the city of Nairobi, my country residence back in Busia County, a business titled Chase Bay, 2 land holdings, a shareholding in Safaricom, the Cooperative Bank, and the Kenya Power. And my pension income is part of that net worth. 2 motor vehicles, a Range Rover and a Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, and 2 water vessels, Mr. Chairman. That is provided in the details of the questionnaire, totaling to 425 million.
Those are fishing boats or luxury boats?
Mr. Chairman, you know, when you talk to anybody from the land of my natural domicile, they'll tell you we cherish our boats as much as we cherish our women.
Yes.
And so those are boats for private use, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. We'll now give you 10 minutes or less to tell us the story of your life.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I'm proudly a country boy, or you could say a boy of the village, from Port Victoria, Budalangi. We call Budalangi the land of lions. This is the home of the Abanyala people of the larger Luya community. These are people that pride themselves for being great fishermen, for being great hard workers. They really do know how to hustle. They're great wrestlers. We love our boats as much as we love our women, as I've said. We love a swig of our local brew, but we also cherish education greatly. This is the land of the great Professor Callistus Juma the Late, one of the most eminent intellectuals out of this country, to grace the halls of the great Harvard University in Boston, Massachusetts. The land also of my brother, Professor Namwamba, who is here with me, who has been recognized as a sage globally. And Mr. Chairman, it is in this community that I was born to the late Peter Luecheche Namwamba, my father, and my mother, Agatha Maina, who I like to call my prayer warrior. Mr. Chairman, I was born the last of 8 children in this family, and led an ordinary life of a village child. Attended Port Victoria Primary School, where I sat my KCPE, and proceeded to Kolanya Boys High School in the north of Teso for my KCSE. And thereafter was admitted to the University of Nairobi School of Law to study my bachelor's degree in law. I graduated and got into practice, Mr. Chairman. And a few years down the line, I got an American government scholarship to do my master's degree at the American University, Washington College of Law in Washington, D.C. After which I returned to Kenya, Mr. Chairman, and went straight into the 2007 elections, which I won and was elected as Member of Parliament for Budalangi constituency, and served for 10 years in that capacity in this Honorable House. Mr. Chairman, during that period, I also had the privilege to chair a number of committees in this House, including co-chairing with the then Mandera Central Member of Parliament, Honorable Abdikadir Mohammed, the Parliamentary Select Committee on Constitution Review that presided over the process that led to our 2010 Constitution. I also chaired the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, the Public Accounts Committee, and the Parliamentary Select Committee on Cost of Living. Mr. Chairman, I'm nostalgically proud of the period earlier in my life in school, because I had the opportunity to get inducted into leadership early, being a prefect in primary school, a school captain in high school, now they call them school presidents, and also chairman of the Kenya Law Student Society while at the University of Nairobi. And later on, even in the US, I was involved in activities of African student groups. At one time, being part of the group that met the then Senator Barack Obama in the build-up to his historic election as first black president of the United States. Mr. Chairman, after the 2017 elections, I was appointed Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a position I held until February this year, when I resigned voluntarily on my own volition to take up the position of Head of International Relations in the presidential campaign of His Excellency William Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza coalition. And that has led me here, Mr. Chairman. Let me add that during my time as a Member of Parliament, I also had a privilege to serve in cabinet when I was appointed Minister for Youth Affairs and Sports by His Excellency Mwai Kibaki and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, then Prime Minister in the coalition government. I look back at my 10 years in this House as a key period in my journey in public service, with some very special highlights, certainly top among them being the Constitution of Kenya 2010, that I had such a great privilege to be part of the leadership that led to the conclusion of that process. That period also had some low moments, like the fate of the Public Accounts Committee at the time of my leadership of that committee in 2015, which got caught up in what I believe to date to have been a political moment of madness that, Mr. Chairman, maybe at a later stage I'll be able to expound. But Mr. Chairman, that is who I am. Let me just conclude by saying, Mr. Chairman, that I have led a journey that for me epitomizes the life of what has come now to join the Kenyan lexicon as the hustler. Because I'm a boy who, I said I'm a country boy, a village boy. I'm a boy who walked to school barefoot. I mean, I would walk to school barefoot and sit in class with pangs of hunger, but never lose a smile on my face or gladness in my heart or determination to finish school. But that's the story of many of us. Mr. Chairman, I conclude by saying it is so important for parents to inspire their children no matter what. One time my father came home with a newspaper, a Taifa Leo newspaper, with a photo of some lawyers nicely clad in the courtroom regalia of the wigs and the gown. And he told me, my son, you must become a family lawyer to protect the interests of this family. And he planted the seed in a small standard 6 boy to work hard and become an attorney. And so every so often, Mr. Chairman, I do a pilgrimage where I take my children on the 3-kilometer walk from my mother's home to Port Victoria Primary School to have an experience of what it meant to grow up in those circumstances, not so that they can do the same, but so that they can understand how far their father has come. And this is the same message I want to share with the people of Kenya, that no matter your circumstances, you can rise and achieve your dreams. That is my story, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Bob Namwamba. That's the story of many of us. I want to invite members to the interactive session. Members, you yourselves said you want to ask one clear, precise question each. And Honorable Babu, avoid any unhelpful stories in answering the questions. Just answer them as they are asked. I'll start with the Deputy Speaker, the Honorable Gladys Boss.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I just want to ask the nominee to give us a roadmap of what you will do to change the plight of our sports people, particularly athletes, who the ministry has never attempted to help them on pension issues, financial management, mental health, and protection also from rogue agents who have swindled them or signed them up for races which contracts are not disclosed to them, and therefore they don't get their full pay on it, or even con them into doping. And then secondly, I know you might know that I had made a petition in 2013 seeking to have Kasarani have a school, a sports academy annexed to it, so that the unutilized sports facilities can be used by the sports academy. And I wonder what your thoughts are on that. Thank you.
We will take batches of 4, then you answer all of them.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Babu, you served in this ministry, and therefore it's you're going back home. By the time you served, there was no sports fund. Now we have a sports fund that exists. What do you intend to do to make sure that the sports fund is utilized for the purposes that it was intended, if you are approved?
Yeah, Honorable Babu, I reckon that you served in this very ministry 10 or so years ago. So what new thinking are you bringing on the table if and when you get a chance to be approved to assume this role? Secondly, you will realize that the NYS, with the setting up of the NYS Council and the bringing on board the new management, the NYS has undergone some transformation and its image has been redeemed somewhat. What do you intend to do to sustain that momentum? And finally, on our way to Busia, kindly pay a visit to the NYS unit at Rangala and find ways of expanding it. Thank you.
Have you approved him already?
if by any chance he gets the approval of the House.
Okay.
Yes.
Robert Mbui.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, our nominee, the Honorable Puistofik, I hope I've pronounced that right. There was an affidavit that sworn by Sheila Masinde, I think, and Davis Malombe, which laid claim to the period when he served as a PSC chair in 2014, where there were serious allegations of bribery by himself and members of that committee, in fact leading to the first ever watchdog committee in the history of Kenyan Parliament to be disbanded. And the allegations were extortion and blackmail. I would like the nominee to maybe shed light on what happened on that matter.
4, you can answer those. Babu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. Mr. Chairman, should this committee, in its wisdom, find me worthy of holding the position to which I have been nominated, it is true that I would be going to a space that is not entirely strange or new to myself, having served in this ministry between 2012 and 2013. And so, to answer the Honorable Deputy Speaker on the roadmap to change the plight of our sports people, I can confidently tell you that I have a fairly good idea, a good view of the sport or the sporting terrain, and I am not under any illusion as to the state of this terrain at the moment. It is actually in absolute turmoil. As we speak right now, our football activities are in limbo, having been suspended by the World Football Governing Federation, FIFA. The Badminton Federation is banned. The Swimming Federation is banned. So the whole arena of sports is in total chaos. Kenya is in a state of a doping crisis. This year alone, there have been no less than 30 cases of doping, which is threatening to shatter the very fine, glittering image of Kenya as a fine state sporting nation. The whole benefit of pension is not available to our sports people. And that is why a lot of our sports people who retire from active sportsmanship, they live in penury. We've seen it with sporting giants like Kadenge, like our fine boxing hero Aruinge, who passed away the other day. And it's because there is absolutely no framework to take care of these sports people in their retirement. We have rogue agents who do not seem to pay any regard to the laws of the land. And I have reason to believe, from past experience, from information available to me, that they may actually be part of the syndicate that is drawing our sports people, special athletes, into these increasing doping cases. And so, should I be cleared to assume this office, I am determined to move with haste to start cleaning up this space, starting, of course, with the FIFA ban. If you cleared me, if I was to be sworn into office, my first morning in office, I would be on the phone with Mr. Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA, to resolve the ban on FKF and Harambee Stars. I want to listen a lot. I would say that in my first 100 days in office, I would do a lot of listening. I want to listen to federations. I want to listen to sports people themselves. I want to listen to stakeholders so that we together can draw a roadmap to return sports to the pedestal it belongs. But most importantly, in line with the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto, I would want to work with all stakeholders to turn sports into a huge industry that can help in resolving our burgeoning unemployment rate and also protect our sports people from exploitation, from the challenge of drug abuse, and the challenge of being able to live in dignity after retirement. Quickly to conclude the question of Madam Deputy Speaker, the Kasarani Sports Academy is something I'm familiar with because it is around the time when I served as minister here that we started the journey to put this academy in place. Regrettably though, this is a brilliant project that got stuck and has not moved much, but we have to elevate this academy to a point where it becomes a focal point for nurturing talent in this country, identifying talent, nurturing talent, and unleashing this talent onto the national and the global stage. I'm a keen follower of football. I'm aware, for instance, of the Clairefontaine Center in France, which is like a conveyor belt. It keeps churning out incredible talent. Talk of Thierry Henry, talk of Kylian Mbappe. You see players who have been nurtured at this French academy. We can do it here. And I'll be very determined, should I find favor with this committee, to occupy this ministry, to put in place the measures to get this academy to the point where it should be. Mr. Chairman, quickly, to the point raised by the Honorable Leader of Majority of this House, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. Yes, I'm familiar. I'm aware that at the time I served in this ministry, in fact, one of the biggest challenges was financing sports. And Mr. Chairman, my biggest achievement as Minister for Sports at that time was the enactment of the Sports Act. In fact, for the brief period that I was in this ministry, I took it upon myself to accelerate the process of enacting this law. And it is in this law that we provided for the establishment of the fund. But I left the ministry before the institutions established under this law were actualized, one of them being the Sports Fund. After the law became operational, there were changes. There was an amendment to this law that spread the benefits of this fund and even renamed the fund from what we had crafted in the original piece of legislation. And it's now called the Sports, Arts and Social Development Fund. And the Honorable Majority Leader, you may want to know that under the regulations put in place by Treasury, 60% of this fund for the last several years has been going to healthcare. It is something which I believe government should take a fresh look at, because if this fund was intended to accelerate the development of the sporting and creative industry space, then the priority should go to providing support to those two areas. Today, sports is only entitled to 35%. And often I hear even those percentages are not remitted to those two important departments. And so it is an area that I would definitely pay priority to. And I would definitely engage Treasury and other departments of government in the spirit of collective responsibility in government to return priority of this fund to its original intention, so that we do not have cases where we hear our athletes arriving late in Oregon for important competitions, where you hear of incredible stories of horror of our athletes spending nights at airports because of mismanagement and limited resources. So yes, Honorable Majority Leader, this is an area that I'll pay attention to. My good neighbor and friend, Honorable Minority Leader Opio and I, what new thing could I possibly do if I were to make a return to this ministry? A lot of water has flown under the bridge in the 10 years since I was last at this ministry. But what gives me confidence is that I was part of the team that put in place the existing legal framework, the existing policy framework. I'm informed that the outgoing cabinet secretary has already initiated a process to revise these laws and the relevant policies. It is a process I would want to support, because the law is supposed to be living, it's supposed to be current, it's supposed to be relevant. So it's a process that I would want to support and progress. But we have also moved on greatly. Now we have a new government that is putting great emphasis on sports and the arts as a big driver of the economy. That is something we did not pay much attention to previously. I definitely want to pay keen attention to that. I did mention the Clairefontaine Academy in France. You could also add St. George's in England, which are centers of excellence. These are spaces which we want to learn from. And we have experiences here, by the way, Honorable and I, with history from people like Zgol in the 70s, Reinhard Fabisch in the 80s, who dared to do things differently, and we saw results in our sports. I am prepared to do things differently, and I'm prepared to listen. I'm prepared to run an open door policy so that together we can make a success of this. NYS, Honorable Andai, you are right that NYS is now in much better shape. When I was first minister here, NYS was part of my mandate. But then after I left, NYS sort of became a nomad. It ended up in all sorts of places. But it has now been returned to this ministry. And I want to assure you that the very good work that the current Director General and her team have done at NYS is something that I want to support and to progress the work of NYS. NYS is now a full-fledged statutory body. It is a full-fledged paramilitary unit within our security architecture. So the way NYS is operating is definitely different from before. And these progressive steps are steps that I would definitely want to look at. And Honorable Andai, being a good neighbor in Ugunja, I know that if I did not visit this facility in Rangala, I might not get passage rights to access my Dala down in Budalangi. So should this committee clear me, definitely I would be glad to visit the NYS unit in Rangala alongside other units to make sure that they operate in a manner that is beneficial to our young people. Finally, Mheshimiwa Mbui, I am aware of the matter you have raised of the two affidavits sworn by Mrs. Masinde and Mr. Malombe. And Mr. Chairman, I did file with this committee an affidavit in response to those matters. It is a comprehensive 21-paragraph affidavit. And I know that in the interest of time, I may not have the opportunity to go through this affidavit.
We have it.
Pardon?
We have it.
Yes.
So take half a minute on that.
Okay. Suffice it to say,
Robert, you've seen it, right? Yeah, okay.
Suffice it to say, Mr. Chairman, that number one, the report that is subject to the affidavits that Honorable Mbui refers to did really not investigate matters of the alleged bribery. In fact, Mr. Chairman, I have quoted verbatim a recommendation from that report appearing in paragraph 325, page 117 of that report, which says they did not delve into matters of the alleged bribery and referred this matter to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And Mr. Chairman, I'm aware that the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission delved into this matter and did not find it worth their time to progress it any further, meaning that they found the allegations nothing more than hot air. Mr. Chairman, significantly for purposes of this process, and I want to request you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee to give attention to the affidavit that I have filed. But suffice it to say that the so-called allegations were actually all withdrawn on record, as recorded in the report of the committee, which I have with me, a copy of which I have with me here, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, of course, we know that if I make an allegation against you and withdraw it, it expires that allegation ab initio. If that allegation is investigated by another body, which finds it not worthy for any further action, then that matter is extinguished in its entirety. Mr. Chairman, I believe that in all the positions I have served in this House previously and in government, I have come out clean as the snow that global warming is wiping off the Mount Kenya peaks of Batian, Nelion, and Lenana. So, Mr. Chairman, I am completely blameless, as anybody would confirm from that report. And my position is as stated in the affidavit.
Good. The next batch. We said one each. Gikaria, Raso, Emase, Naisula. In that order. One question each. You have one more nominee to deal with. And if a question has been asked by another member, you don't have to re-ask it.
on the ban by this, I will leave it because he has answered that. Let me ask this question. Honorable Chair, the music industry relies on royalties generated by the licensing of copyright songs and recording as a primary form of payment for musicians. However, musicians fail to get their rightful share of royalties, a scenario that has now been the norm for a long, long time. And of course, they have always been complaining and meeting different people. So maybe you're the right person to address. What measures will you put in place to ensure that musicians get what they deserve?
Russell. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Ababu, congratulations on your nomination. You are going back to the same ministry where you served 10 years ago. I'm sure for those who don't know, maybe you might almost feel like you'll walk on water this time around because you have been there before. We interacted intensively when you were the Kazakh Ministry of Foreign Affairs. When you look at our sports, actually we see talent. It borders on hobby, and it borders on pastime. From where you sit, tell us how we must turn around sport where the players, the country, and everybody is going to make money out of it, so that our athletes, our footballers, actually are in gainful employment. And at the end of the day, we can say from that ministry, our contribution to GDP is so much. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Well done, Mary. Follow suit, one question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's going to be one question. Honorable nominee, thank you for enacting the 2013 Sports Act that encompassed the 5 pillars, namely the Kenya Academy Sports, that was to deal with talent, the Registrar's Office, that was to regulate sports, Sports Kenya, that was to work on the infrastructure, the Sports Fund, that was to do resource mobilization, and the Sports Tribunal. My concerns are as follows. 65% of the nearly 4 billion for Sports Fund goes to health and only 30% to sports. What are you going to do about that? Kenya Academy of Sports is a factor of talent.
You said
as they are just related to that. But as it stands, most of the officers are in Nairobi, stranded in Nairobi. Instead of going to Garissa, going to Teso South, to Charcoal, and scout for these talents, reason being, there are no funds. Yet we have so many teams that have been formed in all our villages, and some of them are registered in the national leagues. But who is scouting this talent so that we can expose our young people, the youths, for them to be noticed and for it to be of use to them? Then finally, we understand that the Sports Act is due for review. What will your priority be in the review? Thank you.
Thank you. Naisula.
What is the plan to tap talent in art, sports, and nurture it from an early age, and especially from all parts of the country, and especially the rural areas, because there's a lot of untapped talent there? And lastly, on our, especially athletes, you know, every time our national anthem is played out there and how proud they make us, do you feel, or do we really appreciate them as much, even our footballers? Why are people changing their citizenship to other countries? Is it that, what is the plan to ensure that we take care of them so that they don't have to sell their nationality to be appreciated out there?
Those are 4. Above, let's take the 5th, Amisi and Koech. You can do 6. They are very short questions. If you answer them the same way, we'll make very good progress.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I had two, so I reserve one at the tail end if we get time. I'll ask one for now.
Okay.
So remember to give me if there's time. The ministry, one nominee, the ministry seems to not be keen on our community clubs. We find, in fact, myself, I've spent millions of shillings trying to sponsor a tournament as a member of parliament. Once the tournaments are over, these boys are just remained with trophies and a cash sponsorship. But beyond there, they are remain in the villages. And yet, they are talented. You try to invite the sports organizations, all the 18 premium clubs, they don't turn up, they don't come to scout. What is new that you are bringing so that our local clubs, even the stadium, they are dilapidated. And that is where the talents are. You are talking about bottom up. The talents are actually at the bottom. There are no football manufactured in towns. They are manufactured down there. And I believe this is the gap. We are supposed to be a football nation. What are you going to do different this time? I will see you in Matisi, Black Stars there, Mitume FCs, that you are playing with them. In fact, probably could have come in your sporting gear, not in a suit, because that's where you are going.
Thank you. Coach?
Honorable Babu, my question has been asked, but I will just, to the left again, but I'll just give you something to food for thought. That our athletes generally are totally not recognized and appreciated in this country. Look, for instance, why did we have to go for Naomi Campbell to market our tourism, our Kenya as a tourism destination? Our sportsmen, particularly at AK, an anonymous athlete has written me a message to say there's a lot of corruption that you must check, especially when our athletes are going to perform or to compete in international stage. Number two, harness and tap on athletes, specifically someone like Eliud Kipchoge, on it, who's been used by international brands as a marketing sensational, and tap on such face to market our country and our sportsmen. Above all, please, if we approve you, make sure that there is a total restructuring of the sports industry in this country.
You can quickly answer those 6, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, very quickly starting with Honorable Gikaria. The question of royalties and benefits generally to, let me go beyond music. Music is a big part of it, but let me call it the creatives. The creatives, whether it is musicians or fine artists or thespians in our theaters or performing artists. This is a huge problem. And Mr. Chairman, it should be noted that we have a body in this country called KECOBO, the Kenya Copyright Board, which, with due respect, I believe is in the intellectual property, because this really must be recognized as part of the intellectual property that we get from our artists. We should be able to get more out of it. But we also have organizations called CMOs that collaborate with KECOBO to sort of collect royalties on behalf of their members. And we have 3 main ones. We have the Music Copyright Society. I think this is the best known. We have the Kenya Association of Music and Performers' Rights Society of Kenya. These organizations have not done justice to the artists that they represent. In fact, just the other day, there was a case that made headlines where these societies were actually taken to court by some of the artists. And what came out is that it is a space that is riddled with opaqueness, if I could borrow that popular lexicon. But it's also riddled with a lot of mismanagement, and it's a space that will require a lot of attention. We need to take a look at the law. We have a law in this country called the movable and for the House to consider recognizing the creative space and the artistic talents as intellectual property, but also as movable property, so that we can give sufficient weight to the creativity of our young people. It is an area which, Honorable Gikaira, through the chair, I want to assure you that the architecture of this ministry, as has been communicated in Executive Order number 1 of 2022, provides an opportunity, perhaps for the first time ever, for this space of creatives to be given form. If you approved me to take this office, I would move with haste to establish a whole directorate for the arts. A directorate that would give form to this sector, but would also then make it possible for us to allocate resources, to allocate funding to this sector and support our young people engaged in the creative industry. You also did ask the question on the artists getting what they deserve. I believe that once we have put in place, we formalize that space, then it should be possible for us then to raise the entitlement that they get. Honorable Russell, and Mheshimiwa, you know that while working with you in my recent past life at the Foreign Office, during which again we successfully got the Foreign Service Act enacted, you saw the deliberate effort we put in to start profiling our sports people and turning them into ambassadors for this country. For instance, when we sought to sit on the UN Security Council, among the ambassadors we put forth to market Kenya as being worth of a place on the UN Security Council were our sports people. One of our highest profile activities was a marathon we organized in the streets of New York at the tail end of our campaign for the UN Security Council. And we tapped the profile of great sons of this land, great sons and daughters of this land like Eliud Kipchoge. And this is something that we have to do. But as you have correctly said, this must be turned into an industry. We cannot continue running sports and the arts as a sideshow, as a pastime. This is something which you should know. You can actually live from it fully and be able to take care of yourself. And it can be such a huge contribution to our GDP. It is happening in other economies. It's happening in places like the US, in South Africa. I mean, when you look even the way Tanzania is managing their sporting space, football, you can see there is already progress towards industrializing sports and the arts. We must do it, and I commit to do so, should I find favor of this committee. Honorable Emase, Mr. Chairman, you are right about the share of the fund, with 65% going to healthcare, and just a little bit, 30% going to sports and 5% going to the arts, for a fund which was created by the Sports Act for purposes of this particular area. We have to change that. We have to change that. We have to provide money into the academy, as you have correctly said. Our officers are in Nairobi. They're not visiting the rural areas. I know that Teso South is abound with talent. We have to provide resources to be able to nurture this talent, to identify this talent. And in terms of the priority in reviewing this law, we need to strengthen the discipline in our sports federations. There are a lot of issues within our sports federations, but we need to pay even keener attention in streamlining this funding space. But most importantly, as we review this law and this policy, my focus definitely would be on how we unleash the full potential of this country as a sporting and artistic country in an industrial, in a very economic, very commercial sense, Honorable Emase. Mheshimiwa Naisula, the plan to tap talent, we don't appreciate our sports people enough. And you're right. We have seen an unprecedented number of our sports people changing nationalities. The other day, there was an interesting ceremony in Gaborone, Botswana, where a few of their sports people who had just come back from some international event were feted in a massive national event, and they were being given three bedroom apartments. They were being given resources to boost their businesses and all that kind of stuff. I believe that we can do more in motivating our sports people. But for me, what is more important, artists can comfortably live from the sweat of their brow, and providing that legislative and policy framework for them to do that, and make it really proud for them to represent Kenya, to be proud to represent their country. Mheshimiwa Amisi, we will go to Matisi with you, Mheshimiwa Amisi, to make sure that we start demonstrating in a very clear way that we need to pay attention to grassroots talent development. And if you look at many countries that have grown exponentially in this space, they just get the basics right. And if you go back in the history of this country, when we did very well in sports like hockey, at one time Kenya used to be represented at the Olympics in hockey. Kenya used to be a powerhouse in boxing. Kenya used to be a powerhouse in cricket. These sports are no longer anywhere on the horizon. We just got the basics right. I remember when I was in high school at Kolanya, hockey was a big thing in Kisumu City. Big thing, and some of the best players playing for the Kenya national team in hockey were from Kisumu. We are not just paying attention to the breeding grounds of sports and talent. And I can tell you, if Ferdinand Omanyala had not happened on us, we would never have imagined that we can actually crack the short distance space. Angela Okutoi is now winning tennis games at the very top level. The other day, she became the first Kenyan to win the doubles at Wimbledon. She won the singles at the Australian Open. Those are really premium global events. Now we are just realizing that we actually have talent in tennis. But for us to be able to do this, we have to dive deep and start identifying this talent from the source and nurture it to the top. So I am with this committee. I'm with you, Honorable Amisi, absolutely, 100%. And in the spirit of the Kenya Kwanza bottom-up, I will really do this bottom-up, like really go bottom-up, go to the bottom and develop this talent up in the spirit of our government. Finally, Mheshimiwa Koech, I was as dumbfounded as you were that Naomi Campbell would be hoisted on us as some kind of emblem or symbol or Kenyanness. Because if you needed a lady with a global image, we have Lupita Nyong'o, who is an Oscar winner, no less. We could have used Lupita if you wanted someone in that space. But Eliud Kipchoge is something of, it's a global rarity. It's a global rarity. I think it's one of those people that happen once in a generation. We haven't deployed him sufficiently. And so I agree with you, Honorable Koi, that we need to do more. What I can assure you is that I want to work with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, space that I'm very familiar with, to make sure that sports diplomacy is exploited fully, and that brand Kenya can actually ride on the sporting prowess and the artistic prowess of this country. We want to see many more Lupita Nyong'os on the global stage. We want to see many more Eliud Kipchoges. We want definitely to see more Victor Wanyamas on the stage.
Thank you. You have answered all of them.
Mr. Chairman, there was just the issue of corruption, and just to assure that the Kenya Kwanza government has zero tolerance to corruption as a policy, and is a policy that I would definitely carry with me to the ministry.
Honorable Daoud, I'll not see if you don't have your flag up. Honorable Mole, Honorable Mukami, Honorable Ferdinand, Honorable Kosing, and George will be the last. All of you, 1 minute each. 1 minute, one question. In the manner I called you out. Mama Mishi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, before I raise my question, I just want to make a polite plea to Our Excellency the President that through my observation I've seen in the nominees for the CS, I've not seen the face of the youth, nor the face of the people with disability, but I believe His Excellency still has some more appointments. I want to. And my question is on the Hustler funds. I know right now, according to Kenya Kwanza Manifesto, you're going to create the Hustler Fund. Meanwhile, we already have the Women Enterprise Fund, we have the Youth Enterprise Fund, we have the Ways of Fund. So my question would be, what transitional arrangement would you propose to avoid duplicity? And also again, that the Hustler Fund, on the same issue, the Hustler Fund has noted that for somebody to access that fund, you need to have done some saving. It will also attract some interest. So I don't know whether our hustlers in this country will be able to access that fund. What plans are you going to ensure that even those who cannot save, they can still access this fund? I thank you.
Actually, there's a nominee coming for that. At the end of the questions, fine. Wait for Chelugui. That question will be very pertinent to Chelugui. Let's take the rest.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, one of the functions of the CS for youth is business innovation and incubation. And one of the other institutions which is under the CS is Sports Kenya, which takes care of our stadia in the country. And a case in point is last Parliament I had spoken to your predecessor and brought it to Parliament as well, that Sports Kenya had committed in Meru to do construction and all that. But when the CS came to answer the question in Parliament, she completely disowned Sports Kenya's commitment. I want to know from you whether Sports Kenya, under you, will they be answerable to the commitments they had made on behalf of the CS, or what will happen? And regarding the business innovation and incubation, what is your take on that? What are you going to do for the youth?
Yes, Mole.
Thank you very much. This goes to the nominee. Due to poor governance and administrative structures, have ravaged most of the federations in this country, which has led to corruption, financial misappropriation, and some becoming squarely briefcase federation. On this side. Thank you. And these federations or organizations only work up during global competition like Olympics, Commonwealth, and other games, and which has led to poor payment of coaches, like the coaches to deal with Harambee Stars, the athletics coaches, volleyball coaches, and the entire management. What are you going to do as a sports minister to ensure that Kenya sees a different sporting fraternity which can generate revenue for this country and employment?
Thank you. Ferdinand, you're the next. Then Kosing, then George. I didn't. Were you on the list? Oh, okay.
Nominee, I think I want to be very specific. And from what you're explaining, I think the sports in this country will definitely improve. The way you're tackling, the way you're actually answering the questions. But specifically now, football, which I think is one game that everybody loves in this country. And there are three teams that I know, that you know, the Goromaya Goromaya, AFC Leopards and Breweries were very good teams in the past. They've gone, in fact, they are doing very badly, either because of support from the ministry or whatever. Tell me, or tell us, what are you going to do to be able to improve the sense of these teams so that you can get through this, can get our youths actually being called to play professional football elsewhere. The three teams are very, very key in this country. Me having been an official in AFC and played for the club at one time, I just want you to tell us what do you do specifically on these two teams, three teams.
Kosing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to ask Honorable Babu Namwamba through you that, Mr. Chair, is the nominee motivated to work in the Ministry of Sports, really? Because we are trying to assess his suitability or confirm his suitability to that ministry, Speaker and Chair. Why am I saying that? Because, Chair, prior to election, we saw Honorable Namwamba, I saw Honorable Namwamba, and many Kenyans saw him playing very important and pivotal role in terms of issues of international relations, taking the candidate to very prominent appointments internationally, all over the world, Honorable Speaker. And the work, which in my view, he did exceptionally well. So now, many Kenyans, including me, expected that he was going to be nominated for Foreign Affairs. That is where he was going to really have a lot of motivation, energy, and eager. To see him, Honorable Chair, in sports, I'm not seeing the candidate motivated sufficiently, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, we might be approving, and I want him to convince me. Honorable Chair.
Honorable Posing, we are ask him questions that test his suitability and motivation, to use your word, for the office for which he has been nominated, not the office for which he has not.
Speaker, can I continue?
Just ask the question or make your comment.
For him to explain to me specifically, Honorable Speaker, allow us the latitude to prosecute our questions, Honorable Speaker. This is a vetting process, confirmation process. And I want him to explain to Kenyans and me.
He's very
Is he sufficiently motivated to take the office? I thank you.
It's very good to ask questions. If you ask him why he's not in foreign affairs, he'll tell you, go and ask the appointing authority. Yes. What else would you ask thereafter?
Speaker, you are paraphrasing, and you are paraphrasing my question. I asked him to explain to me, is he motivated sufficiently to take over the Ministry of Sports? I didn't ask him foreign affairs, Speaker.
Yes.
You are boxing me towards a corner. That Kenyans will look at me as if I'm not asking relevant questions. I'm asking very relevant questions.
Very good.
Yeah. And
your question was very relevant.
Very relevant, yeah.
Is he sufficiently motivated?
Correct.
To be in this ministry?
Yes.
Yes.
Vis-a-vis
that he did very well elsewhere is neither here nor there.
Yeah, so exactly. So is he motivated? He explained to
Morugara.
me. Thank you, Chair. But don't help him too much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much. Nominee.
Why am I being boxed?
The youth of Kenya is actually watching you today. And possibly they got very high hopes in you when you take over this ministry once, if you are confirmed. Their question is, millions of them, especially summer graduates, are out there unemployed. The government is supposed to first and foremost take them as interns. And after that, the government is also supposed to work extremely hard to see to it that they are absorbed and not downloaded out there. You take them as interns for 1-2 years, then you just let them go and they are back to the streets unemployed. As the minister in charge of youth affairs, do you propose to work with the government to ensure that the numbers in the government, the parastatals and all other agencies are increased in terms of interns, and also to ensure that majority of them are retained in government service in line with the Kenya Kwanza manifesto of ensuring that almost every youth is employed?
Thank you. Thank you. Rahab?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask almost a similar question. How will you ensure that the youth are empowered to pursue sports, not only as a hobby, but also an economic activity that will offer job opportunities to them? Thank you.
Chair.
Yes.
Chair.
Naisula, you had your bite already.
I have never asked for another opportunity. Kindly. CS, and this is important. CS nominee, there are many studies that have been started, and they are now incomplete and stalled. We have Kipkeino Stadium in Wasingishu, we have Kamarin Stadium in Elgeyo Marakwet, we have Mombasa Municipality Stadiums, and having in mind that we'll Kapsabet, and we lost the bid to host the 2025 World Athletics Championships because of lack of infrastructure. How can we be the best in the region, in the world, and we are not able to complete? And just so that you answer that question, having in mind that I have a great feeling that we don't get value for money in the projects where we put money and we don't complete them. I would like to get your thoughts about it.
Yes, Ababu, if you can round up all those very quickly.
Asante, Mr. Chairman. Very, very quickly, Mheshimiwa Mishimboko, I stand guided by the chair that this is a matter which my colleague Simon Chelugui will be very well equipped to handle this. But just to tell you that my understanding, having served in cabinet previously, my understanding that the principle of collective responsibility will come to bear on how the Hustler Fund will be managed. And the Youth Fund, the Women Fund, the Wezo Fund, all those funds should work in sync, and there should be some synergy. And I'm aware that consultations are already going on how that space will be managed with symphonious harmony, so that you don't lose time, you don't lose energy, and you don't lose resources. And I believe that I'll make my contribution in that direction and in that regard. Mheshimiwa Dawood, Sports Kenya, once a commitment has been made, the commitment should be honored. And what I can tell you is that it will be important for us to review all these commitments and see how they can be implemented, because there must have been a motivation, there must have been a reason why these commitments were done, including in your constituency. And I want to assure this House that when I was first Minister for Youth Affairs and Sports, I was also Member of Parliament. So I already had a habit of working very closely with the House, basically having the ministry and the House working in sync. I intend to do the same should you confirm me in this position. So a lot of the issues you are raising here, I'll be very happy to revisit them with the specific attention to respective constituencies. Business innovation and incubation is important. I believe that we can, we must raise the space of sports and the arts to the next level. You know, today you can go to Amazon, you can go to eBay, you can go to Alibaba, and you will access anything in any part of the world. I believe we can do the same in this country by creating a portal that can help us. If you have a young, talented artist in Samburu, they should be able to log into a portal and say, I am here, look at me, assess me, okay? Or some brilliant talent in Msambweni telling you, come look at me. But they should be able to have a way to talk to us. Artists that are churning out fine art, they should be able to have a portal where they can upload their production and say, here it is, any buyer out there. So I would be proposing the establishment of a portal that would work very much along the lines of the Amazons and the eBays and the Alibabas of this world, to make sure that the artistic and sporting talent can be portaled for our young people and our young talents, our talented people, to be able to take full advantage of the digital space. And it can be done. You drive down Ngong Road and you see Jogoo Road. It's amazing, whether it's furniture or pieces of art. It's incredible. But they struggle to market these pieces. We will provide a portal where they can market these pieces and where we can purchase these pieces. And we should also be able to sit in cabinet and ask government. Government is a key driver of any economic sector. Government should buy stuff from these young people. Government should make it a policy that all the nice paintings, like the paintings I see around this hall and the pieces of art, we should be able to see them in every government office, in every parastatal office. And there should be a place where government can actually get these things directly from the artists, in a way where we age out the usurious middlemen who suck the blood literally out of our young people. Mheshimiwa Mule, I couldn't agree with you more on cleaning up the space around our federations. And you know, Mheshimiwa, yes, a lot of our federations operate within a framework of the international legal space. FIFA has statutes. The World Athletics Federation has statutes. FINA in swimming has statutes. But these statutes have to be in sync with our domestic legislation. And we must make sure that this is done, so that if corruption is corruption, we must be able to call it out, and we must be able to take action without our sports people suffering. So this is an area which, Honorable Mule, I would be very happy to work with the House. One area where we didn't do very well with the Sports Act, it is in terms of sanctions, sanctioning federations, sanctioning individuals when they go contrary, or when they act again contrary to the law. And so they keep on running to the international space. So we need to clean up that, and definitely something I'd be interested in. Honorable Ferdinand, I know what you're talking about. I feel you. I have played football at a rudimental level. Mr. Chairman, actually at one time I was the lead striker for Bunge FC. I don't know whether my record for most number of goals scored for Bunge FC has been broken yet. So I'm very
such record is kept here.
Okay. Now that record does exist, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, that one was broken by Kipchumba Murkomen.
Was it? It has not been communicated officially. But Mr. Chairman, that with a light touch, that I have also been an official of one of the clubs that you mentioned, and I'm very keen to see, when we talk about developing community or grassroots football, we must connect it to what we call our community clubs, our community clubs. And so we have to develop these community clubs at all levels. At the national level, talking of teams with real national and international pedigree, like Gor Mahia, like FC Leopards, and other clubs that really represent spirits of their local areas. We have to see how we can support these clubs. And one of the things we are going to do very strongly is to strengthen sponsorship. It is sad that a partner like SuperSport left the local sporting scene, yet it used to play a very significant role in terms of even just marketing our players by airing our live games. When I was minister, I traveled all the way to South Africa to make arrangements in that space with SuperSport. I would want SuperSport to come back. I would want other partners to strengthen that space in terms of sponsorship and exposure. But most importantly, we must put money in our football. Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi, it is an area which I will be very committed to if you find me worthy to serve in this ministry. Mheshimiwa Kosing, if you had a passion meter here, you would actually find that I'm 100% passionate about coming to this ministry. And I'm highly motivated to serve in this ministry. It is a ministry where I have worked previously. And those of us who have had the privilege of serving in government, you serve where you are assigned by the appointing authority with similar passion. And so the current cabinet secretary in charge of sports started off as cabinet secretary for foreign affairs and moved to education and has finished her tour of duty at the Ministry of Sports. That is just how the ball rolls. And you roll with the ball and you serve your nation with passion and motivation where you are assigned. During campaigns, everybody played different roles. There are those who played security roles. I don't think they're going to be required to run security in this country. There are those who played communication roles. They may not necessarily end up running communication. We played our role during the campaigns, and in the spirit of collective responsibility, we'll continue working together. But yes, I'm highly motivated to serve in this docket. Honorable Murungara, let me, when you talk about the youth of Kenya and jobs, Mr. Chairman, the youth of Kenya are disillusioned. They're dispirited. They feel disenfranchised. And it is not accidental that in the last elections, the largest portion of Kenyans who did not turn up to vote were actually Kenyan youth, because they just feel disconnected from what you can call the mainstream economy of this country. We have to give the youth of this country fresh hope. And we have to start by putting in place policies and measures that can enable them to have a dignified existence. And so if you have young people who are being absorbed through the Ajira program, for instance, we have a program in this country called the Ajira program. There must be a way where after you have played a role in the Ajira program, government somehow mainstreams you into the system. As I talk to you now, Mheshimiwa Murungara, 1,300 young people are engaged at the judiciary, doing transcription, doing scanning, basically helping in the digital operations of the judiciary under the Ajira program. There must be a way where these 1,300 young people, and they are young people who have gone to school well, there must be a way where they can be absorbed. And so I am going to be the #1 champion for young people to be integrated in the mainstream economy, and to make sure that those who want to live off their talent, they live off their talent with dignity. And we can do this by investing in infrastructure, helping with marketing, opening avenues for them to earn a dignified living, and protecting them in terms of protecting their intellectual property and making sure that what they're bringing to the table is recognized. Be assured of my full support and availability. And my policy would be that nothing for young people without them. And so a lot of the things we want to do, we want young people to be at the center of it, driving it, whether it's the Youth Fund, whether the National Youth Council, whether the National Employment Authority. You want to see young people fully engaged in these programs for them. Mheshimiwa Rehab, empowering young people to pursue sports as an industry, as a formal engagement, I am with you 100%. And that is why I'm talking of innovations like eBay, Amazon, Alibaba, where we provide a space where young people can share their creativity, they can share their talent, but also make it clear to federations in this country that these young people do not exist to just service their interests. So the way they operate must be in a manner that serves the best interests of these sports people. And if for nothing else, at the end of the Kenya Kwanza government, and I know His Excellency President William Ruto is very passionate about this, we should have elevated sports and the arts into a roaring industry and a mega employer of our young people. Mheshimiwa Naisula, stadia have stalled all over the place. Camarine, I think, is stalled at just about 40%, and many others all over the place. And you're right, there is definitely no value for money in a lot of these places. And the sad thing also is that we are still building stadia in the old mold. A stadia, we are still thinking that a stadia is a terrace, a green pitch in the middle, and some track around. No, the world moved on. Stadia now are integrated facilities. Stadia have theater. Stadia have recording studios. Stadia it's an integrated space where sports people and artists can do so much more than just kicking a ball on the green patch or running around the track. And so one of the things that we must do also is to revisit even the design of our stadia. And we must turn all our stadia must be turned into centers of excellence so that we have activities going on there continuously. I mentioned Clairefontaine, which is run by the French football, but there are also clubs. When you go to Barcelona, they run a great academy called La Masia, where they churn out great talent like Messi, who was discovered at the age of 6, 7. Who is discovering talent in this country at age 6, age 7? And where would these talents be discovered? We must make this the spaces where we can spot this talent and grow this talent so that we can be able to compete with the rest of the world. And it is an area where I'm going to be available. We will assess the facilities that are in place and then start a new journey on how to manage that space better. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Namwamba. I'll give Honorable Posing one last chance.
Was there anything remaining?
Yes, I'll give you one last chance.
Was there anything remaining? I wish the candidate wish the candidates exist.
You okay?
Yeah. I wish the
Mishimbogo has sent me a question. He was afraid of having another bite, but I'll allow you to ask yourself about the rehabilitation of youths' substances.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you for giving me this chance once again. To our nominee, I know you are aware about drugs menace in the Coast region and even in the entire country, Nairobi, even now in the area like Nakuru. The other time I was talking to Mheshimiwa Gikari, and he also told me that it's a big problem in Nakuru. Right now, currently in our government, we don't have any public rehabilitation centers. What we have those which are privately owned. I don't know whether you have some plans to ensure that we actually have public rehabilitation centers, and this should be at the constituency level. Because right now, what we have been seeing, the mushrooming juvenile gangs, it's as a result of drugs addicts. We have really tried to do some outreach program, sensitization. We have talked to the government regarding the barons, the agents of drugs, but it's like, it's a big cartel. There's so many people who are in this cartel, and it has become very difficult. What we are hearing is that maybe some of the police officers are on payroll weekly, monthly. So it is very difficult. We don't know what you can do. When you go to Lamu right now, you can just cry, seeing big numbers of youth in drugs. It's not like 100 youth. You see like 2,000 youth in Lamu. You come to Mombasa, you see like 5,000 youth in drugs, hard drugs. We don't know what we can do. We have really tried so many times. We have even identified the barons, those we call vichuzi. We take information to the police personnel, but nothing is being done. Up to now, I don't know what's wrong with our borders. Like for instance, our border Lunga Lunga here, Horohoro, Tanzania and Kenya, where most of the drugs which come to Mombasa passes through those borders. I think there must be something differently which is going to be done to ensure that we save the youth of this country. Otherwise, as parents, we have our daughters, they will not even get husband where we are going in the Coast region. Because you know, for them, they're not even interested in having girlfriend, in marrying. What they're interested is just getting the kete, that one kete, you buy it at 200 and it's all, nothing else. They're not interested in anything in life, in what, nothing, just drugs. It's really pathetic, Honorable Speaker. I'm really crying anytime I talk about drugs. I'm really crying. In my constituency, anytime I go, anytime I just land in Likoni constituency, I get around 1,000 youth coming for me. Mama tujapona, and you can give them money. They don't buy food, they don't buy clothing, they just buy the kete, that hard drug. Thank you.
Yeah, Honorable Namwamba, there's a Kenyan who has sent a message asking me to ask you what you are going to do about youth addiction to gambling in the country. Yes. We need to close. Yes, Gikaria.
Thank you. Just as I was going through, just before somebody else sent me a question regarding, when you talk about sports, Bwana Namwamba, and the big clubs, then we forget the route where it starts. And that route, your offices are devolved, but they don't have even enough funding to be able to do some little bit of some activities at the local level so that they can be able to start, somebody can be able to nurture. Myself, I've been in football for 30 years, and I will tell you how important it is for us to start the youth clubs at our local level. And lastly, change about
thank
this.
You. I gave you one.
Okay, so.
Russell.
Thank you, Speaker. Honorable Ababu, it is looking out of the box that we may, this really will just be a statement, a shopping list in case we'll approve your nomination. In our region, a lot of youth are the ones who are involved in wrestling and causing chaos in terms of security. Recently, we saw a lady who was teaching youngsters archery in Baringo. I think Baringo or West Pokot, one of the two. That brought so many youths together, others who are perennially trouble causers. If that thinking out of the box can actually be encouraged in the Ministry of Youth and Sports. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Babu, shortest time possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mheshimiwa Mboko, the drugs challenge is, goodness, it's a monster. It is destroying our young people incredibly. And the sad thing that it's just not localized around the coastal belt. It is now pretty much all over the place. And as I said earlier, it has now even infiltrated the sporting arena. In fact, the challenge I posed earlier of doping must be recognized as drug abuse. And even those substances that our young people are being caught with, those substances must be rated as drugs, and the penalties meted on the offenders must be as severe as the penalties we have for what you want to call the hard narcotics. And so this is an area where we have to work. We have to approach it through education. I know there is a very useful program called the Olympic Values Education Program, which integrates a number of values that can be part of our CBC training program. And this can be done in partnership with bodies like NACADA and ADAC. ADAC is the anti-doping agency of Kenya. But it is a space which will take a multi-agency, a multifaceted approach, and it requires incredible volume of resources. It is something which government must have an integrated, clear framework. I can tell you that because the majority of the people who are affected are young people. Honorable Mboko, what I can commit at this stage is that if I'm confirmed in this office, I would be a champion against drug abuse within cabinet to push for a framework by government, an integrated framework that can confront this monster before it destroys a whole generation right before our eyes. Honorable Speaker, alongside the drugs is gambling, and this is another huge challenge. And I remember the last time I was in this honorable house, we grappled with this challenge of how do we. I remember especially the contributions of the late Jacoyo Midio, who was very passionate about this agenda on the risk posed to our young people by gambling. Again, this is an area which we have to manage. The gambling industry is a big global enterprise. The betting firms are also now some of the key partners in the space of financing sports, and so we need to find a framework to balance this. And again, it is an area where I'll be available to listen to best practices to see how we can manage that space better, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Gikaria, we just must fund local. I said earlier, we have to go basic. We have to start right from the bottom. I do recall that in the early days when some of our teams were doing very well, Harambee Stars was doing very well, teams like Gor Mahia were winning continental tournaments. Is a time when they had a stream of talent flowing in right from the grassroots. Teams like FC Leopards would get players straight from Kakamega High School. You could see some form of conveyor belt conveying talent, and that talent feeding the national teams and our Harambee Stars. We have to go back to those basics, and we have to send funds to where the rubber meets the road. Honorable Russell, for me, it's not even looking out of the box. It is thinking completely, entirely, absolutely, without ambiguity, without the box. So that we throw away the box and just now think afresh, anew, so that we can take this country to the next level. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Babu, I'll ask you just one or two questions. I want to focus on our athletes, because in our sports, they're the most visible ambassadors. Honorable Naisula mentioned of Kenya's national anthem being played in the most unexpected places because one of our athletes has struck a gold medal, has beaten the world. But eventually, these world beaters get captured by promoters and agents. Would you consider if you get the opportunity to run this ministry, to engage the Attorney General and start a vibrant legal support program to help these young Kenyans when they want to engage those agents? There must be a lawyer on hand to draft a contract that is enforceable, that will guarantee and protect their interests, so that the agent doesn't become the athlete and the athlete becomes a guinea pig. You also need to engage probably the Ministry of Finance, the Treasury, to help in how to manage the resources these young people get. When they come in with their money, who advises them how to invest it for the future? Because they'll never run forever. You must have read a book called The Old Man and the Medal by Ferdinand Oyono, where an old man called Mecca is given a medal, like all our athletes have. And he goes to the local market, puts it around his neck and walks around, and he realized nobody either recognized him or was interested in him. And yet he was supposed to be the hero. And that's what we're having, Henry Rono, the others. You know, if the legacy you live in this ministry, cascading from athletics, because that's our biggest sports enterprise, how to help these young people earn their money, keep it for later years, have contracts properly executed, have proper advice, be given incentives, gifts, tax breaks, whatever. You know, that's what is lacking. That's why they live here and go and run for Qatar, because they appreciate them more than we do. Where Honorable Posting comes from, there's a Samson Kimombwa. He won a gold medal in one of the Olympics, the only one that Kenya won in one of the Olympics. Nobody hears about him. Even in Kapenguria, where he was born, there is not even a street named after him. Nothing. So that's what I want you to, among other things, of course, look at. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, sir, I couldn't have put it any better than you have. You know, there's no feeling more tiring, more inspiring, more touching in a nationalistic pride sense than hearing that national anthem play. That flag rise, whether it is in Brasilia or Amsterdam or New York or Beijing. I don't believe this country has any other branding value bigger than that. And we have definitely not. One, we have not exploited it fully. Secondly, we have not done even the basic quid pro quo. Because if you were just to do the basic quid pro quo for these athletes, they're scratching the national back. No one is scratching their back, Mr. Chairman. Just basic. So I want to make a commitment, Mr. Chairman, that this is an area where we must work seriously. The idea of having the AG's office involved is brilliant, and they already have a pro bono scheme. It's a pro bono scheme which you can log in as a public interest program where our athletes can be provided free services as part of that quid pro quo, and they can be given information on contracting. They can be given information even just on basics of the risks that lead them into doping. Engagements with agents, because not every agent that comes here is a nice person, and some of them do terrible things. There are even serious cases of sexual harassment, sexual abuse of some of our young people. So it is an area which definitely, Mr. Chairman, I'll pick up. Investment and market intelligence is something which Treasury can provide, where these young people can be given training, they can be given information to know the investment vehicles that are available. For instance, now the Kenya Kwanza government is going to be very big on affordable housing. It's an area where our athletes can be guided on how to direct their resources, be part of national government development, while also putting their money to good use. So yes, Mr. Chairman, I am very well guided by your supreme wisdom, Mr. Chairman.
3 minutes. Tell us what you want us to do for you.
Mr. Chairman, let me first of all say that sitting in this room in front of you and these honorable members, I'm a very proud Kenyan that our institutions truly have matured. The manner in which you have conducted this exercise, the decorum, the maturity, just makes every Kenyan's heart fill with pride that we are maturing as a country and our democracy is on another level. So I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the honorable members for making this house and making this country so proud. Let me also use this opportunity to thank His Excellency the President for finding me worthy of nomination to this office, and give the assurance that should this house find me worthy to serve, I would definitely put my best foot forward with passion and full motivation, Honorable Kosing. And just to conclude by saying that I am a hustler and the son of a hustler, like hustlers like many of us are. I have walked that journey of coming from the village to be able to sit here and get the privilege to serve my country. And I want to thank the people of Budalangi. They are Abanyala people. Honorable Chair Mheshimiwa Wandai would tell you that the people that they call Jomanyala, they are actually the real Jonam. And while our good neighbor and Shemej think they are better fishermen and sailors, Jomanyala actually say we taught these good neighbors how to fish and how to sail. And we also taught the Igbo of Nigeria how to wrestle. Amalinza the cat can confirm that. So, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank these people who gave me the platform to become who I am, and just to give an assurance to the sporting fraternity that if I'm confirmed in this position, I'm going to be listening very keenly to everybody, and I'm going to run an open door policy where my door will be open to all stakeholders to work in so that we can improve this sector together. And the young people of this country, I want to be a friend of the youth of this country. I want to give them voice. I want to open doors of opportunity to them. As they say themselves, Nawalambotov na ninawarank tu sana as young people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Namwamba. You are now released to leave the committee and go to your other duties. Thank you for answering questions clearly. Honorable members, a stretch of 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Then the Sergeant, look for our next nominee.
Mtazamaji, Babu Namwamba hapo akiondoka mbele ya kamati ya uteuzi